Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Code Enforcement Nuisance Board for the City of Bowling Green, Kentucky. The date is March 22nd, 2016. It's a little after 5 p.m. Location, City Hall, Commission Chambers. We have the roll call, please.
Here.
Yes.
Simpson.
Here.
Earbone. Wilder. Thomas.
Yes. And mailed the minutes. I think we have a quorum of 3. You've been mailed the minutes. I think they arrived Saturday. Any changes or additions or corrections?
Move they be approved. Second.
Simpson. Deere. Deere.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes. Any comments or announcements that we haven't been told about?
We want to introduce our newest animal control officer, if she'll stand up and give her name. And
I'm Katja Ford, the newest animal control officer here since about 8 weeks and trying to observe today.
What is your first name?
Katja,
Katia.
yes.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
You have a Georgia accent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Before the meeting started, I asked her where a gun was, and she said she just had a taser. And I said, that's enough. That's enough. Well, welcome. Okay, the hearing agenda, we have, I think, 5 cases.
Let's do a little swearing in, the old people.
Of the old people? All right, would the officers please stand, raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. I was going to do it. All right. Case number 1, case number 2016-41. Citation number is 2016-784-320. The location is 10th Avenue West. The owner is Doris Gillum. Respondent is, I think, a granddaughter or daughter, Mona Ware, and she has the power of attorney, I believe. Brad, you want to try your new system here?
Yes, I don't believe she's present. I don't know if you still need me to present the case. She had appealed
We need
the
to present
citation.
it if
so-
she's not here.
I think you need a producer record.
Okay.
If she's not going to respond, I think it would be wise to produce a record.
I think there have been numerous times or attempts to get hold of these folks, and
Very many, in fact, yes.
they said they were busy, I think.
I believe it was a combination of medical problems and being busy and a few other things. The case is a result of a roaming inspection that was conducted on January 5th of this year. During this inspection, I noticed multiple broken windows, gutters or downspouts not maintaining good repair and that were clogged with foliage. I took photographs and sent a notice of violation on that day to the PVA listed owner and address with a reinspection date of February 5th. On the screen in front of you, you'll see the windows on the front of the house are broken, at least 3 of them, and the gutters, primarily on the left side of the house, are in a state of disrepair and clogged and have foliage growing out of them. I completed a compliance reinspection on the 5th of February of this year, found the property still to be in violation with no positive changes being made. In order to encourage compliance at that time, I left a door hanger on the front door and set a compliance reinspection for the 16th, allowing 11 days of an extension in order to gain compliance. On the 9th of February, I received a voicemail from a Mona Ware. She stated she was the daughter of the owner and her power attorney. She did state she both got the NOV, the notice that was sent originally in January, as well as the door hanger. They had a lot going on. As you say, they were busy. Had some medical issues as well. I tried to return her call several times that day, left several voicemails, and none were returned. On the 16th, on my re-inspection for compliance, there were still no changes being made. I had left several messages, I would say about 6 messages or 6 phone call attempts and messages over about a 9 or 10 day period, with none being returned. I underscored the fact that this case was about 40 days old and that nothing had taken place at that time. I was concerned both about the cold temperatures and the broken windows with people living in there, and nothing having been done. In my voicemail at the end of that week, stated that by Friday, if I had not heard anything and no changes were made, that I would have to issue a citation. I would have no other chance because no other choice. There was no other communication being made and no changes being made to the property. I then went to neighbors to try to find out any information, contact information, and was unsuccessful there as well. On Friday the 19th, I again called even in the morning, several times, saying that if I did not hear anything back by that afternoon and no changes were made, that I had no choice but to issue a citation. On that day, I did issue a citation and posted it on the property, as well as sent it to the PVA listed owner and address, as you'll see in the pictures on the screen there. It still had multiple broken, missing, or boarded windows and gutters that were not maintained in good repair or clogged with foliage. I had set a compliance reinspection 10 days later, February 29th. Still no contact was made in that 10-day period as well. On the 29th, I went back out and completed another compliance reinspection. At this time, not only was the property still in violation with the initial violations, the clogged gutters and disrepair and the broken windows, however, at this time there was also a window that I believe you'll see on the next picture that had appeared to have fallen out of the front of the building and had broken onto the front lawn, and there was a glass and window frame on the front lawn. So that was added to the second citation, as well as overall duty of maintenance of private property. Still no communication was obtained at that point. However, shortly thereafter, on March 1st, the granddaughter of the owner and the daughter of Miss Ware had come to the code enforcement office to pay the fee and fines for the first citation. I was out on an inspection at that time, and I was not able to meet with them. However, Tabitha had called me and told me that they were in the office. I tried to make sure that the phone numbers that I had were the same phone numbers, and Tabitha had that young lady call Miss Ware and explain the importance of this case and the severity of what was going on, our concern for their safety and their well-being, and in an attempt to try to get the resolution on this case. At that time, again, I guess, made it clear that the communication was a very important part of this as well, and that if they had something that they were working on repairs, we just needed to know that in order to work with them. And I believe that Tabitha had gotten information that they did order windows and that they were going to replace them at some point. As of today, the case, I believe, is at 77 days. No changes have been made. The pictures in front of you on the monitors are as of this morning. The windows are still broken. There are still glass and window frames in the front lawn. Gutters are still clogged and in a state of disrepair, primarily on the left side of the structure. And I still have not had any communication other than the filed appeal, so we've not taken any further code enforcement action at this time.
Noticed also that the paint is peeling on the outside.
It is, and there's several areas of peeling paint, primarily on the front of the structure there on the upper part. However, generally, I believe as common practice during the colder months is we try to give a little leeway or be a little more flexible until it warms up enough in order to fully address that.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question, then I got a motion. Brad, does anyone live in this house?
I believe that both Miss Ware and her mother, Doris Gillum, who is the PVA listed owner and address, do both live in the house, yes.
Never saw them on any of your visits?
I have tried numerous times now.
You ready for a motion?
Is there anyone here representing the property? Please come forward. You can stand over there. Identify yourself, please.
Yes, my name is Mona Ware. I live at 320 West 10th.
Okay.
I'm POA for my mom, Doris Gillum. I'm also a restaurant manager working 40 to 50-something hours. I stepped down to take care of my mom, which has dementia. Upon paying someone,
Raise your right hand.
Oh,
If you're
okay.
going to testify, we've got.
Okay.
Okay, you swear to tell the truth, whole
Yes,
truth,
I do.
nothing but the truth, so
Yes.
help you God. Thank you.
Yes. I'm one of the managers of Pizza Hut. I was general manager. I had to step down to take care of my mom. She has dementia the past 3 years. Upon doing all this, things have, well, the main thing was my mom's concern. She's had a heart attack in the house while I was there one day on my day off, and she had bleeding ulcers and quite a few number of things. So that came first, and then we had to have care taking care of her. Upon this, yes, we did let things go, because I had to make sure she was settled first, and with my work, as many hours I was working, I had to step down. These are not excuses, it's the truth. I can verify this from my boss. Had to step down, so I'm able to give the care to my mom she needs and get things done. I also have an estimate from Window World that we'll be doing 3 to 5 windows at a time. I have informations with the POA. I was also told this morning, which I have asked other people about different things, because I've never had to have all these things fixed, that Window World also does gutters, and which I didn't know that. So I was just gonna ask, I've asked different people, friends, who does what type of work, so we can get this done. We were not ignoring them, but at work, I'm not able to have my phone on me. And they just don't allow it. So it would stay on charge, and I haven't been able to look at messages, because we don't get off on time and don't get this and don't get that. If anybody work in the restaurant world, no, you just don't leave on time. And so this is where I'm at. It's not that we were ignoring you, we just waiting to get things done, and then paying for somebody to keep my mom in the evening so I can work. So this is where we're at.
Is that a signed agreement or just a estimate?
This is a signed agreement.
Can we see it, please?
Sure. And he told me it doesn't change.
Swear,
The price doesn't change.
is this property occupied?
Yes,
Okay,
They both live in it.
okay.
yes.
You own it.
And like I said, we've also made, going to get back with him on when the windows be fixed. Of course, it got to wait till it got a little bit warmer and things like that.
You do own the property?
Yes,
How long have you owned it?
about 30-something years.
How many windows does it looks like there's 2.
2, and then one at the top, he told me I can get someone with regular glass. Yeah, it's 2 in the front, and the one at the top,
At the
he said
top.
just get regular glass for that, and they don't have to do the one at the top.
And then it says kitchen window on top of that?
Yes, kitchen windows around the side. 2 in the front, and then the kitchen window on the side.
Hey, this was dated October the
Yes.
12th of 2015?
Yes, before all this happened.
Okay.
And then, because that's what we were planning on doing, as soon as it warmed up, and then over the winter months, all this other stuff happened.
Is this contract still
Yes, he
valid
said-
at this point?
Yes, he said it wouldn't change.
You must have had a pretty expensive heating bill.
You just don't know. But you gotta do what you gotta do.
Okay. You have a,
Yes, sir. I understand where you're coming from, ma'am. But I'd like to make a motion to uphold citation and fine in the amount of $306.75. And let's see if we can get this done behind us. That's my motion.
second?
Second the motion.
All right, been duly seconded.
Simpson, Deere.
Yes.
Deere.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes. Now, the question is, since this is under action now, we won't have any further fines for 30 days or so?
Well, if you've upheld the citation and fine, then we would resume normal code enforcement action, and
So you have at least 30 days?
I'm very happy to work with Ms. Ware if we
Okay.
can communicate tonight and work on that, certainly.
All right? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ware. Hope your mom gets better.
It didn't make it done.
Do what?
With dementia, you don't.
Okay, our second case, 2016-39, citation number 2016-704, and the address is 1524 Parkhurst, owner D&L Rentals LLC, correspondent, Mr. Don Minton. I think we should probably go ahead and present that as well. I don't see Mr. Minton here, so.
No, and what you can do, Chairman, frankly, I don't think typically this body does this, but you can move to introduce the staff reports as exhibits to these proceedings. And that way, if you don't want the staff to go fully line by line, item by item, you have those reports as part of your consideration. That would suffice as a record also in these cases when appellants don't appear.
Well,
But
I'd
one or
like-
the other, I would recommend.
I'd like to do that, but I think the seriousness and the complexity of this, I'd like to hear it and see it, and so we do have a record and there's no question.
That would be my request as well, especially for the fact that not only was this an appeal by the appellate, as you say, but it was something that we were planning to bring before the board for a per-day fine due to noncompliance before his
Okay.
appeal was filed. So I believe that it's pertinent one way or the other.
All right, please proceed.
I guess just as a preface, I did speak with Mr. Minton earlier today by phone. He stated that he was ill and was not going to be able, most likely, to make it to the meeting this evening. Stated that hopefully he would be back up and normal in his words, or back at it by next month, and would try to appear before the board next month as well.
You mentioned how long he said he'd been ill.
I believe 8 to 10 days.
All right, thank you.
This case is the result of a roaming inspection that was conducted on January 5th. And bear with me a little bit because this case is somewhat confusing, as we've had two different officers working this case for both structural and nuisance violations. And then later on in the case, an interior inspection. So bear with me as I will try to muddle through this. My initial inspection in the citation that was appealed by Mr. Minton in this case was for multiple broken windows on the structure at this location. I took photographs and sent a notice of violation to the PVA listed owner and address on January 5th with a reinspection date of February 5th. I'm sorry, of January 5th with a reinspection of February 5th. On February 5th, I completed a compliance reinspection. The property was still in violation, no changes were made, and all the windows were still broken. On that time, I issued a citation, posted it on the property, and mailed it to the PVA listed owner and address. Photographs were taken, which I believe you see in front of you there. The citation's posted on the door. You've got two windows on the front, one of which on that bay window there is the lower left corner that has a plastic bag in it. I believe there's a close-up picture. On the right-hand side, that window right there has a trash bag in it. And then on the back side of the residence, which is still accessible from the driveway, because I was turning around and saw that, the window of the door, the rear door to the location, is broken out and was, I guess that's some sort of paper or cloth or something that was stapled over the front of the door there. The compliance reinspection that was listed on the citation was going to be for February 15th. On February 15th, I completed another compliance reinspection. At that time, the property was still in violation with no changes being made. So a second citation was issued. As you see in front of you there, the same window is still covered by a trash bag, the lower left window of that bay window. Citation was posted on the property, and the window on the right-hand side is still covered by a trash bag. And the back door still had no window in it and was covered by, again, some sort of paper or cloth material. There was a compliance reinspection date listed on that citation of the 7th. I'm sorry, I take that back. That was the second citation that was issued on the 15th with a compliance reinspection of the 25th. On the 25th, I completed another compliance reinspection, found no changes were made to the property. However, at this time, The cases were combined with the earlier case involving the nuisance violations to the exterior of the property, such as the accumulation of rubbish or debris, the junk and tires that was brought before the board, I believe, at the November meeting, which Mr. Minton had appealed, which was Mo's case. And so those two cases were merged, and henceforth, the third citation and my case being brought before you today it involves all of those, both the exterior and the nuisance violations. On that day, the windows, as you can see, were still broken on the front of the property, covered by plastic bags. The accumulation of rubbish, as you can see by the picture, was still very much there, both in the front yard and the backyard, as well as the tires that were still in the I guess, farthest back portion of the backyard. It did not appear that any changes had been made to the property, so I had issued a third citation at that time, posted it on the property, and mailed it to the PVA listed owner and address. The compliance reinspection date on that was March 7th. At that point, having issued 3 citations myself and Mo having issued 2 on the prior case from 2015, we were going to bring it before the board for a per-day fine. However, on March 2nd, we had 2 folks come into the office at Code Enforcement stating that they had just recently moved into this property and that the interior of the property was in a state of disrepair, and they had numerous concerns about the inside of the property. Within 30 minutes of being notified by James and Tabitha that they were at the office, I met them at the property for an interior inspection. I also called Mr. Minton, told him that they had come to our office with those concerns and requested he meet us there, and within 30 minutes he was there as well. So both the property owner, myself, and the tenants completed a walkthrough inspection at that time on the 2nd. During that inspection, I observed not only the existing violations for the broken windows, the accumulation of rubbish and tires on the outside of the property, but in addition, there were additional broken, missing windows, as well as windows in the bedrooms that had plexiglass covering the window frame and were screwed into the window frame from the interior of the structure, which created a fire safety and escape hazard. There were no smoke alarms present anywhere within the structure. The plumbing mechanism on the inside of the toilet was not operational. The toilet had to be flushed manually by opening the tank. There were several missing receptacle and switch face plates on different switches and outlets throughout the house. There was a hole in the ceiling from an existing hood ventilation system that just had drywall that was cut out in the ceiling and went straight to the attic space. There's a broken switch, as you see in the picture there, which cannot be operated by the switch. There was vent piping from a previous gas water heater that was replaced with an electric water heater, and it was not capped or removed from the kitchen. There's also a large section of missing siding on the exterior of the house, and a broken or missing knob in the bathtub or shower that made it difficult or impossible to operate the cold water in the bathtub. At that time, I gave Mr. Minton 24 hours to install 5 smoke detectors in the house. I'm sorry, I take that back. 4 smoke detectors, 1 in each bedroom and 1 in the hallway immediately adjacent there to the bedrooms, and to make the toilet fully functional, to replace the interior workings of the toilet so that it was fully functional. I scheduled at that time a meeting for noon the following day to meet Mr. Minton and the tenants back at that time to make sure that those emergency repairs were made. At that time, after talking with James and formulating a game plan, we determined that the best course of action was to compile all of the violations to that point. All of the nuisance violations outside, the trash, the tires, all of the broken windows and exterior violations, and all of the interior violations onto one fully comprehensive and complete notice of violation. I presented that and hand-delivered it to Mr. Minton and explained it to him at that time, and we gave him 11 additional days in order to fix any of those violations and have the property in compliance. Otherwise, as he and I discussed earlier, that if those things were not repaired, that he would be brought before the board for a per-day fine. In the meantime, between meeting him that day and that compliance date on that notice of violation, he filed the appeal on that third citation, which is what brings it before the board tonight. But in addition, due to the fact that the property is still in violation today, the only changes that have been made to the property were that he did install the 4 smoke alarms, and that the toilet was repaired, as well as several of the switch plates and the outlet covers have been replaced. However, the windows are still broken, and I believe this is this as of today, Tim? This is as of today. You can see in the backyard the pile of rubbish and debris is still in the backyard from the case that you had heard in 2015 when he had appealed it back then. The tires have been moved into the shed you see on the right-hand side there, so the tires are stacked up, but there is still garbage scattered throughout the back of the property. The siding is still missing on the left side of the house. The exterior windows are still broken, as well as the window in the door that is missing. The tenants there have security concerns as a result. There's still garbage accumulated in the front yard, as you can see, and scattered along the roadway from this property. And then there's the missing siding there on the upper portion of the side of the house. I believe there might be a close-up picture of that, I'm not sure. And that pretty much just leaves an open space straight into the upper part of the residence or the attic area.
You have been inside. When was the last time you had been inside?
The last time I was inside was Thursday or Friday of last week, and I believe that I have those pictures in there as well, Tim, if you could, I should have the second interior follow-up. So that was on the 17th. Again, there's the door where someone had put their hand through that cloth portion, which, as you may recall from the previous pictures, that portion wasn't there.
Go back to the one before that. That's against code right there, isn't it?
It doesn't have a cover on it, which isn't necessarily against code, but the fact that the socket itself on the left-hand side has a broken bulb in it, which appears to be exposed, and with exposed wiring, that certainly is an electrical hazard, yes. Again, this is where the resident said that someone had put their fist through that protective cloth or plastic or whatever in an attempt to open the door. At this time, I also was able to observe that the door frame was in a state of disrepair. I don't know if that was as a result of someone trying to gain access. I don't recall it looking like that during the first inspection. Again, several of the switch plates and outlet covers were replaced by Mr. Minton, as well as the smoke detectors. This is the piping that was there for the gas water heater, and then when it was replaced with electric, it is still there, and as you can see, hanging out of the ceiling. There was at the time of this inspection on the 17th, a missing breaker in the panel, which presents an electrical hazard. However, during that inspection, the tenant told me that the dryer receptacle was not working for their clothes dryer, and that it had not worked ever since Mr. Minton had replaced the water heater and done some work on the panel himself. I also saw that there was no inspection sticker. So I spoke with Scott Hunt in the building department. He's the electrical inspector for the city. He made a couple calls and had it repaired that day by a certified electrician to make sure that all of that was back up to code and how it should have been. This is not a great picture, but that's a picture of the hole in the ceiling where a hood system used to be in the kitchen that goes straight up into the attic where insulation is falling down into the kitchen. Took several pictures to document that the smoke alarms were installed in the bedrooms and the adjacent hallway. This is a picture that shows the plexiglass. I think the next picture might document a little bit better. You can see there's the upper pane of that window is still in place. The lower pane is what broke, and it appears that a large piece of plexiglass that wasn't cut to size was screwed into the window frame there, which thereby makes the window inaccessible or not being able to be used as a fire escape. There's a broken doorknob on one of the bedroom doors. There's several small holes throughout the drywall in different bedrooms in the hallway as well. This is the bathtub, which shows the knob is broken on the bath faucet there on the next picture, Tim, the right-hand side. They said that they are able to turn the cold water on as long as they use pliers or something that has a grip to it, and they can take a shower or a bath that way. Prior to doing that, they were just taking cold water from their kitchen sink and shuttling it across the house with a bucket.
Did they offer how much they're paying a month for this?
We had asked Mr. Minton at one point, and he had stated what their first month rent was because he didn't charge them a security deposit, but I don't recall what those numbers were.
Are there children living there?
I would say they are 15, 17 years old.
How many people?
3.
I mean, I know you're just guessing, of course.
Well,
Maybe.
just from what I can recollect from the 2 times that I've been inside the house, and from who I could tell was helping her move the first time to move into the unit, and then who's actually been there the second time, I believe it's 3. So
Like an adult and 3.
an adult and 2 older children, 15, 17 years old or so.
How many bedrooms?
It is 2 bedrooms. No, it's 3 bedrooms. There's the bathroom in the center with a bedroom on each side, and then the bedroom across the way that has the broken window with the trash bag on the front. The other bedroom on the back corner is the one that has the plexiglass that is screwed in. One of the bedrooms is in fairly good condition.
I'd like to make a motion.
Please.
I'd like to make a motion to uphold the citation and fine in the amount of $606.75, implement a per-day fine in the amount of $300 per day to run until the property is in compliance.
I'd like to second that motion.
Deere, Simpson. Deere,
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Good report, all the way.
So how do we notify Mr. Minton? Certified letter?
You will get a finding of fact with the motion and all the information, yes.
You all have to bear with me. Everything's blooming now, so. The third case this evening, under old business, case number 2015-3418. The citation number is 2015-2674. Location is 2340 Russellville Road. Owner YB&R Investments, Mr. Don Minton, and of course, he's not here this evening.
At the February board meeting, the board upheld a $9,900 fine that was per-day fines retroactive to a meeting before that due to Mr. Minton not bringing a definitive plan in writing to the board meeting outlining how and when the violations would be abated. We are bringing this case back before the board to see if Mr. Minton would be able to produce a plan in writing to abate the violations on this property. As of today, the case has been open 229 days, as you see in front of you. No significant or positive changes to the property have been made since the last meeting. The majority of the mobile homes continue to be characterized by disconnected utilities, broken, boarded, or missing windows. They're vacant and abandoned and/or unsecured. In addition, the dumpster, which we had a problem with back in October and November, along with the inoperable vehicles, if you recall, that had one point mostly been cleaned up. The dumpster's been overflowing since at least the February meeting. There's a large accumulation of furniture, trash, rubbish, so forth at the rear of the property, which has not been emptied for at least the last month. The pictures in front of you there, just to kind of recap the property here, and also just to point out, I know we had talked about it once when we, I believe, had brought the plat or looking over the parcel itself, but in addition to the trailers or the mobile homes and the workshop to the rear, there's also a large white structure, a white house that is at the front of this property, which is also in a state of disrepair and has numerous code violations, but they all pretty much go together with the rest of the property. All of the trailers are still in a state of disrepair, as I stated, with broken windows and such. The pictures here, I believe on the next slide, will show you the accumulation of trash, rubbish, debris, and junk that's in the wood line there, in addition to around the dumpster. My memory of this may be slightly better than most, since I've been dealing with it for a while, but those are the same couches that have been out there since, I believe, August, that we had been trying to get him to remove, as well as all of the wood that's piled up in the back, the garbage that's overflowing from the dumpster as well, like I said before, and I believe there's just a few pictures here of the various broken windows and such that we've seen numerous times before.
Counselor, what are our options on a per-day fine for this?
Well, is it still accruing per-day fines as we sit here today?
No, the way that the board had left it at the last meeting in February was that the per-day fines from, I believe, the November meeting through the February meeting were upheld, or the January meeting through the February meeting were upheld. So the $9,900 was put into place, and it was just kind of left open-ended at that point, and there really wasn't another motion made. The only motion at that time was just to uphold those per-day fines in the amount of $9,900, and then it was left open-ended. So that's why we're bringing it back in front of the board for either Mr. Minton to provide a plan or show that the nuisances the violations were abated, or at your discretion otherwise.
Well, obviously, for the per-day fines that have been established, there was an appeal of the initial citation. That citation was upheld after a hearing on that, correct? And the per-day fines were instituted. For how, do you know on what date the citation was upheld? Are we talking months and months?
23rd, at our last meeting, there was an accrued, we made a motion and passed an accrued fine from when this case was opened.
Yeah, I don't believe that this was an appeal off of the initial citation. I believe that after the initial citation, we brought this before the board for a per-day fine right off the bat. We wrote the initial citation, and then when nothing had been done due to the overall safety violations and concerns, we consulted with the legal department, the city's legal department, and just brought this straight before the board for a per-day.
My question would be this then, the citation never was appealed?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay, and whether it was appealed and upheld or never appealed, it's the same result, in my opinion. The citation stands.
Absolutely.
That's
That was from
It's been
August,
approved.
yeah,
All been
right,
approved.
that was from
So-
August or September.
I think it's well within your discretion to institute more per-day fines if that's what you decide to do. There's obviously not been remediation of the cause of the citation, and the legitimacy of the citation is final at this point.
So we could uphold the motion that was made and passed at the last meeting is upheld, and
That's
then we
not
can
accruing.
start an accrued
Absolutely.
daily fine at this point.
What's our maximum? James, what's our maximum we can go?
Maximum for per day?
Per day.
Again, I think it's at the board's discretion on that. It's whatever you
I mean,
think.
is there an
and
upper
feel.
limit? Not 10,000
I'm not
a day.
I'm not recalling necessarily anything in ordinance that says that.
Does the board have discretion, I guess, like the repeat offender, discretion to set an amount?
Yes, I mean, you do. We also were thinking about going ahead and, actually was hoping he would show, Mr. Minton would show today, so we could maybe discuss, because once he left the last meeting, obviously, nothing got discussed about what could happen in the next 30 days up until today.
We are not in receipt of a written plan.
Correct?
And you have not received a payment for the fine?
In addition, when I spoke with Mr. Minton on the phone this afternoon about this case and Parkhurst, to remind him to be here tonight, and when he stated he wouldn't be able to, I recapped this case with him, and I asked him if he had any plan, if he had sold any of the mobile homes. He stated that someone had called him out of the newspaper ad with interest on 3 of the mobile homes on the right-hand side, but that had fallen through. Due to his health, he hadn't followed up on anything else to this point, and the property has not sold with Weigert Realty. There really hadn't been any movement. It didn't make it seem on that as well.
I have a question. Citation fees have been paid. What has been paid? Citation fees have been
The
paid.
citation fees that he has accrued on this property, he's paid those. He's not paid any per day fines.
How much has he paid?
I don't have the figure right off, no.
It was just the,
I think it was just
Whatever
$106.75.
they were. Okay. So the per day fine is our issue right now, and he hasn't
They're
done,
outstanding, correct. They've not been paid.
he hasn't done squat.
No, so all that to say that we were going to go ahead and ask the board, and actually we was going to ask him voluntarily first. Does he give the the authority to go on that property and actually demolish and take care of, abate the problems there? And actually, I think, Brad, you gave him you asked him verbally today about that?
I did. I told him that the next step in order to possibly avoid per day fines, abate this violation or this property, was to get his voluntary consent to demolish the property on the city's behalf. Thereby meaning that the city would not only demolish all of the mobile homes, as well as the white house in the front there, and the shop and the shed to the rear of the property, which would then put a lien on the property for the amount that the demolition costs. It's not anything he has to pay up front. If in fact he then does want to sell the property and continue to want to sell it and leave it on the market, that lien would be paid whenever there was a transaction on the property. Otherwise, he could keep the property if he wanted to at that point, take it off the market. That was certainly up to him. But at that point, it would just be grass, and I suggested at that point it might even sell better than it would at this time, in which case it would, it would still be a win-win because the violations would be abated. He would still be able to sell the property, and at that time, the lien would be paid during any transaction. And his words were that he would take that under advisement.
He's been taking a lot of things under advisement for some time. On the 9,900 per day fines, if we were to have this cleaned off, if he agreed to that, would he still owe the 9,900? So that would be in the lien?
Unless you can reconsider that at some other point and change course, but as of now, that's been upheld. So that will attach to the property.
He's being billed for that currently,
right, it would be a separate lien from anything else, but it would
Right.
still be a lien on the property.
correct.
Well, what if we made a motion, I offered a motion, to continue the $300 a day fine? I guess from this point on, to add a little interest in his part on doing this, and that we put a letter agreement together for him to agree to have the property demolished and cleaned off.
Well,
Can we do that?
Well, again, the demolition of the property voluntarily is just what it is. It is a voluntary purpose for him. Now, you as a co-board, we were going to go ahead and suggest that since it's been as long as it's been now, and we've not had any abatement of the property at all, we're actually going to ask the permission for the authority to go ahead and demolish the property.
That's what I just said.
Yeah, without that, well, I mean, the fine, the per day, I mean, that's up to you guys, but we would just simply,
The longer he delays at $300 a day, the more it's going to cost him when he does sell it.
what would happen is if the board sees fit that the code enforcement office has the authority to go ahead and demolish the property, it would be upon us at that point to actually start the process of getting it done. And, at that point, it still wouldn't be instantaneously. It'd still be some time and some things that have to be done legally first to get that going. But there would be plenty of time for him to, come collect anything that he needed to collect from that property before actually the trailers were removed and
How long would that take?
the whole process.
No, to get it ready to get his agreement.
I mean, just because of, being able to notify all parties involved, and it still takes several days. I mean, I'm talking,
Like 30 days or?
minimum just to start, just to get to a certain point, and then then at that point, again, it's in our hands, and we, the city, would start the process of actually the demolition process. So it would be steps that we'd have to take, legal steps we'd have to take, and then eventually, so in other words, eventually it'd be abated. The city would do it. We would just lien the property, the amount.
You would expect the board to ask you to do that?
Well, it's permission from the board to do that.
Would be if I may, Chairman, that would be a decision of this board. I would anticipate the property owner would have to get notice of that, like they do every other decision of the board. Attendant to that notice would be a right. He could seek judicial review of that decision, should he challenge it. But at the end of the day, if he didn't challenge it or the judicial review was not held in his favor, the city then would have all legal right to abate the noncompliance. The only thing I would add to that, knowing that he does have a right to a review of that, and there's a period that he can seek that review, the only benefit of an additional per day fine would be to address that gap in time, that he would, not be compelled to abate it because he has time to issue or seek review. At the same time, there's no per day accruing. Frankly, however, my advice to would be if the decision is to issue an intent to demolish, I probably would advise against the per day fine. And the reason for that is I would not want that to be seen as some additional leverage that you were trying to place upon this owner to avoid or to encourage other than a judicial. If he wants to review it judicially, let him review it. If there are grounds, frankly, I don't know what those grounds would be because the citation, that issue's final, and there's not been remediation of the noncompliance. So I've said a whole lot more than I generally say. I hope you get the gist of what I'm suggesting.
I think it's a way to go. I really do.
At this point, this has been open so long, we just don't see, the per day fines are just, in our opinion, not gonna work. The only way we're ever gonna get compliance is to seek the intent to demolish and clean the property up. Now, in the meantime, if Mr. Minton wants to change his mind and sign a consent form, we can do it voluntarily. And liens will be placed on the property. And if there's any transaction on that property, the lien will have to be satisfied. But he won't have to pay for it up front.
Do you know if there are any liens at the present time?
That would have to be a question for Tabitha. I don't.
There should be, after I put the per day fines that were approved last month in there, those are out there. He's getting billed for those now, and, it's out there for a lien to be placed on them.
If he doesn't pay those in a certain length of time, then a lien is automatically filed by legal.
Absolutely.
If you're wanting to know if there's any other liens above and beyond ours, I don't, at this point, we wouldn't know that.
We don't know that information.
But the way
We would find that out.
way the rules and laws are set up now, we have priority over the liens now.
So let's talk about the protocol again. If this board says, let's pursue this, then what happens?
And we as a governmental entity will start the process. We'd start getting the legal, having them do property checks. It'd be, that's where the time frame comes in. There's still going to be a lag because there's things that we have to do that we haven't done yet because we didn't know we would have to come this far. So we would start doing the legal process and making sure everyone's notified that needs to be notified. And the lien holders would have to be notified as well. So it's a process, but it's basically a communication process of letting everyone know. And then once that gets done and it's cleared and we're on our way from there, then it's a process of, electrical and gas, and there's a lot of other things, utility-wise, that would have to be corrected first as far as before we start the abatement process. And then eventually, a contractor would come in and clear up the lot. And again, it could be $20,000-$30,000 worth of accrue amount coming up, but it again be a lien against the property. And once an action against the property takes place, that's when the city would actually recoup its money at that time. So he's not out whether we do it involuntarily or voluntarily. It doesn't matter one way or another as far as that goes.
If Mr. Minton gives permission, that would speed things up.
Some of the process would be sped up.
And
Yes, sir.
do you have paperwork to make that request?
Yes, we do. We have consent forms
Yeah.
in the office.
Part of the motion would be to offer him that avenue.
Yes, that's what Brad did today verbally, and we will
in
offer it
writing,
again.
yeah, in writing.
We'll offer it again, and we'll have the consent forms there if he wants to do that.
And identify everything too. There's one trailer occupied.
Correct.
And I think there may be 2 different deeds on that property, or maybe more. So we're gonna have to be specific about what we're talking about. You all know, I'm not sure. And there's houses there, and are they included in demolition? I don't think they would be, but I don't know.
Well, there's 2 or 3 houses to the right of the trailer park when you're facing it that are on that separate parcel. So this parcel would just be the white house, which is unoccupied, and then trailer number 2, which is occupied, to the best of our knowledge. But again, that's where the legal department, once
Right.
if you choose to start the ball rolling, that's where they do the title search. That's where they would find, anyone that needed to be evicted, contact the health department, that sort of thing, and it's just getting the ball rolling, which is going to take a while.
How long would we give him to decide he wants to do this voluntarily before we start all the legal, or we have to do that anyway?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe if you get the ball rolling and decide that that's the course you want to go on tonight, anytime within that first 30 or 45 days while we are obtaining the legal side of things, if he comes forward and decides that he wants to do it voluntarily, it just...
My suggestion would be if the board is inclined to move that route, that the motion's simple. That the motion be that the board takes that action, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. And it allows the staff then, because again, he will have a review period that he has the right to seek judicial review of that in the court system. And within that review period, should the staff convince him, which would make sense on his part, to do this voluntarily, you've got that time built in already. And if by the time that review period and the appeal period runs, he hasn't made up his mind, you don't then have to come back here to ask for an involuntary proceeding. I think the motion simply is that the board instructs the staff to seek either involuntary or voluntary abatement of that noncompliance.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Oh, what was that motion exactly? I need one of you all to say the motion. Sorry.
No, I agreed with him.
No,
Please repeat.
I'll say this, I'll just say this again, and if it falls with your approval, I'll let you restate it. That the board instructs the staff to seek either voluntary or involuntary abatement of the noncompliance through demolition of the structures. And that would be the decision of the board.
Of the said property.
That's correct.
Is that right? Of the said property?
Yes, sir.
but not the 3 houses to the side.
No, those would be on a different parcel, different piece of land. And now, I believe that the sale that he had put up with Weichert Realty was for all of that, was for all 3 parcels. But our action in this case is only dealing with the mobile home park, the one white house, the workshop, and the shed on that one parcel.
Because all of those are out
In
of
violation.
compliance. That's
Correct.
right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Say it?
I did already, twice.
We're instructing the staff
Okay.
to seek voluntary or involuntary action on the part of Mr. Minton for the demolition of the property with the exception of the 3 homes located at the right as you face the property. Counselor, does that work?
That's sufficient.
So we're gonna go,
Seconded.
okay, Simpson, Thomas. Deere,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Thomas.
Fourth case, old business, case number 2015-4424. The address is 1777 Holly Drive, Unit A. Emmanuel, and could you come forward and give us your name so that we don't make it sound funny?
You want me to say my full names?
No, just your last name.
Iyebuniwe.
Say again?
Iyebuniwe.
Okay.
Can you try it?
Ine Bigu we.
Iyebuniwe.
Okay,
All right.
close enough. Raise your right hand, please. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help you God. Thank you. Case first.
At the February Code Board meeting, a fine of $3,750 was levied by the board against Mr. Emanuel, and the board ordered that the repairs be completed in a 28-day period on or before today's date, March 22nd, 2016, at this meeting, or a per-day fine of $150 per day would be assessed at this meeting for a total of $4,200. At the time, in the information that you were provided in the summary that I had prepared for the meeting, the case today has been open for 169 days. The tenant moved out of the apartment as of March 7th. I have not been able to inspect the interior of the unit since that time. Mr. Emanuel and I have spoken twice. Most recently, we spoke on Thursday and Friday of last week. During that time, Mr. Emanuel had told me that he had contracted with a contractor to tear off the roof, replace the areas that were leaking on the property, place a new roof on the building, complete all of the exterior repairs, and then that contractor would then complete all of the interior repairs. I guess Mr. Emanuel had provided them with my information, and I was contacted by that company, spoke with both the owner and the crew leader who was going to be doing that work to provide the board with a timeline, as well as to confirm that those repairs were going to be made, make sure everyone was on the same page, and follow through with that. Mr. Emanuel had started that process back on the 16th, and that is the signed contract date with that company to initiate those repairs. Again, I had spoken with that company on Friday of last week and Monday of this week. To my knowledge, that's how we were going to present the case. However, this afternoon I was called by the owner of that company, and he informed me that he has since canceled that contract and will not be doing the repairs for Mr. Emanuel. And so as of this point, the property is still in violation with no repairs being made to the exterior, and I have not been able to gain access to the interior since the tenant moved out, so my assumption is the violations still exist on the inside, as Mr. Emanuel had told me that they were on Friday of last week when we last talked.
Okay, can I speak?
Yes,
now?
please.
Okay, thank you. I think I would like to put things in perspective because maybe it will help clear things up. So please bear with me. I've been in Bowling Green since 2003. I came here as a professor at WKU, and I'm still there. I have a family. I have 4 boys. My first son is a senior at UK. My second son is a sophomore at WKU, and he's on the football team. So some of you who are familiar with WKU football may know Joel. And I have 2 younger ones at South Warren High. So I've had issues since last June, and I did mention to you last month when I came here that I had to travel back to Africa, and I spent a month there. I had some unfortunate issues that were going on, and eventually it ended up in an unfortunate way that led to my travel. But no, that's my personal problem. I mean, I'm not trying to ask for compassionate whatever or anything, but I want to put things in perspective. And that was when all these things started happening. I've owned a number of properties since then, and I've tried as much as possible to manage them to the best of my knowledge, and I've never had issues other than nuisance complaints, grown grasses or trashes on the yard where tenants are supposed to do what they're supposed to do, and I will end up going in there to clean them up. On one occasion, and that was the only time I've been before the board, I was out of town for a couple of weeks when they sent that violation of grown grass or something. And when I came back, I realized the violation had occurred, that I needed to come before the board. And I presented my case, and they requested that it had already been corrected, so that until this time. So again, because of these family issues I was dealing with, I'm still maintaining my full-time job, and I have these issues to deal with. This case is totally different, and so this is all completely new to me. But I do want to say that after I met with you last month, I promise you that I'll do whatever is in my power to get this thing corrected. Because it's to my advantage that the house is in compliance and that tenants are there. As Brad rightly said, the tenant has moved out, so that's good news. If you recall, I mentioned that I do not feel comfortable going into that house or property while the tenant was still there. And I think Mr. Thomas has said, well, it should be in your list that you should have the right to go. But well, the good news is that she moved out. But guess what? The day she was moving out, she expected that deposit back, which was $500, and she owed me over $2,500 from 4 months of non-payment of rent as well as the late fees. So I told her I was coming to meet with her because she wanted to give me the keys back and then get her deposit back. So I presented my information as to what she owed me, but she still wanted that $500 back. Well, needless to say, I did not give it to her, and she refused to give me the keys. But I went with my son because I knew she could be raising, making some sin. I understand that tenant fairly well. And eventually she left, locked up the place, and left some of her garbage or whatever inside the house. But I was happy that she moved out because now we could do something. So that same day, on the 7th, I called Phil at Window World, and he came down and gave me an estimate of what it would cost to repair the windows. But before then, I do want to make a comment, because this is something that I feel very strongly about, and I want this board to address it. Before I left the house, when I went to meet with the tenant the day she moved out, when I refused to give her back her deposit, she made a comment that Brad told her that I owe some fine. She mentioned $1,500 and that there'll be additional fine coming my way for not fixing the violations. So that's one. I'll revisit that. So after I finished with the window wall guy, I now decided to call a number of contractors in town. I finally got a hold of CMS Roofing and General Contractors, and they agreed to meet on a certain date. And so when they met, they looked at the property, and then they gave me an estimate of what it would cost to fix it. And I do have a copy of that here, the whole thing that they provided to me.
Is this the roofer who is, he's now not, no,
Everything, the roof and the interior,
but he's backed out, yeah.
Yes, but that's what I'm getting to. So we agreed and that they were gonna fix it, and everything they were supposed to start this week. So when Brad called me last week, I believe it was on Monday or Tuesday last week, I can't remember the exact day, He said he wanted to go inside and take some pictures that he would present before the board. I told him, well, that nothing has been done inside because I'm working on some that I'm with a contractor and that I'll get back with him. So on Thursday, as he stated, I called him and told him that I do have a contract in place and that the people will be starting this week. And I think, I don't know if you want to see this. This is a contract that they have given.
It's no longer valid.
Okay, yeah, well, I guess it's not, yeah. So that they'll be starting this week. So I told him the name of the contractors. And when they came, I mentioned to them that CMS Roofing and General Contract, that I have issues with code enforcement, that this place is in violation, that those I showed them everything that needed to be addressed, and those were things they included. That's what, and it's all listed here. So I called Brad on Thursday and left him a message that I was calling him back because of a previous conversation. He now called back and told him, about this general contractor who will be doing it. And then the next thing he said, okay, make sure to have copies of the contract when you're coming. Are you coming to the, March meet? I said, yes, I will. He said, make sure to have copies of the contract. So he then said he would want to contact the general contractor. And I was saying, well, maybe he didn't believe me, he wanted to confirm. So said, yeah, that's fine. I told them about the code enforcement that, violations that they are aware. But that if he wants to contact them, he should. I don't have a problem with that. So I think I want this board to tell Brad to explain what went on between him and the general contractors that led to the revocation of the contract that I have with them. Because I'm aware that he's been constantly in touch with them since that time. And this morning, when they called me about 11 o'clock, and the guy said that they were revoking the contract, the next thing he said is, see, we're trying to help. He said, we've already told Brad about it. And they said Brad was the first person to contact them. They were not the ones that contacted him first.
Slow down. Say that again now.
It's just, yeah. He stated in his under oath that they called him, they contacted him. I never gave them his name. I only mentioned to them that there's a code violation. He was the one that requested for their name, and he said he has done some work with them, and if it was okay for him to contact them. And I said I don't have a problem with that issue. And so he contacted them, and even the guy's name is Chris. He's the one that I dealt with. He called them, and then he followed up on, and he's been constantly in touch with them. And so when he revoked the contract about 11 o'clock today, what he said to me was that they had already called Brad and told him that they revoked the contract. That's one. Two, he said, we're trying to help you. Now you are under, serious problem of paying over $9,000 according to information that Brad provided to them. So I guess I need to know, what are my rights as a landlord, as a resident of Bowling Green, in terms of the code enforcement officer discussing specifics of the case with tenants, with the general contractors. So I would like for him to testify and say everything he knows about this thing that he discussed with CMS Roofing and General that led to the revocation of the contract. So after they called me, I was shocked, for them to say they revoked the contract that we had signed and agreed on, and they were to start this week, which is what I related to him. I decided to start calling around. And finally, I got hold of Fidelity Contracting Services, and I do have a contract in place, and he'll be starting this Friday.
Well, while we look at that, I don't think we're going to go back on telephone calls second and third hand. Let's go from this point on. Is this more expensive or less than the first contractor? Same?
They're about the same, but I think part of the problem with the other contractor is even before they started work, they were to start this week, they had a supplemental whatever that would have cost additional $4,500. And that was what I objected to. And I don't know, all those things that I say, how can you know what the additional cost there's gonna be when you've not even started the work, you've not taken the roof? I can understand if, you've started it and then found out there's something that you missed or whatever was not included in your original distance. So that was, I think that was part of what, led to the revocation. So I got this one, and he's starting this Friday, and he had assured me that, and he said if you need to contact him.
This week?
This
starting
week, yes, this Friday, yeah. He said as long as the weather is good, because it's going to start with the roof, tear up the whole roof, yeah.
Seen this?
Well, I'm glad you found another contractor.
I'm really excited I found another because I was,
Well, where we are now, the citation and fees have been levied and approved. They are unpaid, and that's water that's gone under the bridge. We had $3,750 in prior accrued per day fines. Counselor, is that due and payable?
Again, like the last case we discussed, well, as the staff has laid out, that one option they have for you is to approve those, which would make those final. It would get you to the stage that you were at in the previous case.
We didn't if we said we'll give you 30 days to finish the work,
Back here in 30 days.
30 days, and we could waive the fine then, if the work, yeah.
As a point of correction, the $3,750 at the last meeting was, to my knowledge, already upheld, voted on, and that is...
That's what I just asked.
Yes, those are upheld.
You are in the same position you were in the
Okay.
last matter. And the reason I say that, frankly, if you look at some of the motions, they recite that you're moving to uphold the $4,200. That's already been done.
That's already been done. That's why I was
Yeah,
asking.
the
That's
question is
No.
whether,
The last meeting was the $3,750 that was the per day fine that had been running since the prior meeting. That was upheld. At the last meeting, he was given 28 days to today come into compliance, or else that's $4,200 that's been running since the last meeting. So they're two separate per day
Two
fines.
separate.
One was already upheld, and this one is before you today.
Well, I think you're making progress. I would be in favor of letting the 150 per day fine run, and at the end of the 30 days, if your work is complete, then we would waive that second amount of 150 per day. You understand? You've been fined $1,520.25. That's last meeting. You also were fined $3,750, and that was approved. So now we're talking about another set of fines if you do not get the work done. If you do, then there's no additional fine.
I will get the work done. Like, as I said, it's to my advantage to have the work done and have that place rented if we have to.
And that's what we're
offset.
trying to give you,
Right.
that.
But what I do want to appeal to the board, I believe this, when there's violation of this kind or whatever, and I think but in my opinion is that you're trying to correct something, and that your goal is to make sure that thing is corrected. And not necessarily, I think the fine, I understand the need for whoever, the perpetrator is, or to pay a fine. But I think we should be, I want the board to be compassionate and consider each case on a separate basis, on its merit. I do not go out, that's why I wanted to give you a perspective of what had led to this, and that in 13 years, I've not had these issues. And so I want the board to consider that. But also, I do want to request that the board reassign another code enforcement officer. I do not want to deal with Brad again, and I do not want him to, not let him into my property. I do hope you will understand where I'm coming from with that. He has, when I talk to him on the phone, I feel threatened. It's like there's this fear in you that gives you nightmares. You can't sleep well because he makes you feel that I'm the boss and I can do this, and you got to, If you don't correct this thing, you're in trouble. That's the feeling you get when you talk to him. And you know, it's really, I don't think that's the way to go about this. I think we should treat people fairly. I'm not asking to be given special treatment, okay, but I think I request that I be treated fairly. In view of the fact that I'm a landlord, and we're all working towards the same goal. I have 5 calls today, people looking for a place to rent. There's acute shortage of rental properties in both. So I'm not in need. You have nuisance tenants. You could have 6 months, no rent. So we're also trying to help the city by investing in property as an individual, and to be treated the way I've been treated. I feel really, I've loved Bowling Green. I've lived there 13 years, and I love this place. But I don't want to have to go through this nightmare. It's been giving me stressful days and nights. And I'm being very honest with you. I don't know how else to present it. But you need to know how I feel as a person. And I don't
Well,
want to move.
You're entitled to your feelings, and we can honor that. We'll take that under advisement on which staff, whether we continue or not. This has been going on for 6 months. This isn't a 1 week or 2 week thing. And I think we did try to just offer you compassion and say that, and plus a little urgency to get the job done within 30 days or the next board meeting. I think that's what we're prepared to do at this point.
What I hear the chair saying, I think essentially what the board has discussed would be option 2 that's been outlined for you, with a 30-day
Window. All right. Would one of you
5
like to
days
make
to the
that?
next meeting.
And to be exact, Ms. Joyner is saying 35 days. to the
35
next meeting,
days.
if that is the intent.
Or 45 to safe side.
45 wouldn't get you to the next meeting.
I know.
You think you can get that done in 30 days, 35 days?
Absolutely. This guy is reliable, and he has assured me
Okay.
he will start this Friday,
Okay.
barring any weather issues with the roof.
All right. Do I have a motion on the second one? You want to read it?
I'll make the motion that we uphold the fine of the $4,200 accrued since February the 23rd, 2016 meeting, and continue the per-day fine in the amount of $150 per day to run for a term of,
35.
35 days.
How many?
35 days.
35 days.
I second that motion.
And let's add to that before it's approved or seconded, that if the repairs are made per the contracts and the board staff, then the fine of $150 per day would be waived.
The new per-day fine
The
that's going
new
into
per
effect.
Per-day
day
fine
fine,
would be
yes.
waived, yes.
And would that be your motion with that amendment,
That-
Mr.
yes.
Chair?
And I second that.
Okay. Deere, Simpson. Deere,
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Okay, case number 5, old business, 2015-3569. The address is 452 Webb Drive, owner Charles Satterfield. Brad, can you explain what we have here?
At the February 23rd Code Enforcement Board meeting, the board upheld a $7,500 amount in per-day fines that accrued to that point and made a motion to continue $300 per day in fines to run for 28 days or until today's date, which is March 22nd. For today's meeting, as of today, the case is at 218 days. Property remains in violation. No positive changes have been made. The majority of the structure continues to be characterized by chipping, peeling, or flecking of paint, duty of maintenance of private property, and an accumulation of fallen trees and limbs, debris in the backyard, much as it was last month at the meeting. In front of you, you see pictures of the left side of the house, which is in a state of disrepair, the right side of the house, as well as the gutters and roof line that are in a state of disrepair and have peeling, chipping, flaking paint.
A representative from the property, please come forward. Identify yourself and
My name is Charles E. Satterfield.
right hand, please.
Yes.
Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you
Yes.
God. Thank you. Go ahead.
Oh, my father passed away a few years ago, and I inherited 50% of the property. The other half of the property went to my stepmother's family, which was the Herndon family, so I only own 50% of the property. I went to an attorney's office here, and I tried to get a clean bill of sale so I could sell it. I had 3 different buyers on 3 different times, and other half of the people on the property, for some reason or other, they wouldn't sign the papers. This went on for about 5 years. And the attorney's office kept sending the papers out, and they sent them out certified, and they wouldn't sign. Half would sign, half would not sign. So I could not sell the property. So the advice of my attorney was just let it go, let the city sell it to the master, let it go to the master to be sold. I spoke to the attorney this morning, and he advised me, let the city sell it, because I couldn't get a clean bill of sale. I couldn't get a clean deed, a clear deed.
Did we not discuss what to do with this? I think Mr. Broderick was going to.
It seems, Chairman, I'm not sure I've heard of discussion of this property. I've heard this issue come up before, though, from this board. That being inherited property with multiple owners, can't agree on what to do with the property, can't agree to sell the property, and then the suggestion is made, as this gentleman has said, Mr. Satterfield, that sometimes people say, well, just let the city sell it. The issue with that strategy is you now have a whole big lien on this property that will be subject to that sale. And I think a lot of times people don't appreciate that fact, that, you are incurring debt on your property as a property owner that will have to be paid at the time of sale.
Don't sell it, you have nothing.
You have nothing. This body will only receive, at this point, this body probably expects to receive the fines and fees at the time the property is sold, which apparently is the, at least of this one owner, the only owner that's appeared before you, that's his intent, is for that to happen. But that obviously requires enforcement of the liens, which I would assume are, by this point, in place. It's an action that
Mr. Satterfield can't sell it if he doesn't have clear title.
he cannot sell on his own, correct. But the owner still have to maintain the property. I mean, the code of ordinances that this body enforces doesn't have an out if you're a part 50 or 25% property owner. There's no difference. The ordinance is blind in that regard.
Is it apportioned by the ownership portion that each has?
What be a portion?
The debt.
The debt will come off the top, and the remaining
All right,
equity
come
will be
off.
divided by the Master Commissioner's office pursuant to an order of distribution that the circuit court judge would order. That would be an issue between the property owners. Presumably, if there are 50% owners, you'd expect the remaining equity to be divided 50%. If there is remaining equity, that's an assumption that I'm not willing to make because I know nothing about the property or the other mortgages that could exist on it.
And 50% of the lien would go to the,
Well, the lien would be paid off the top.
I won't get
Okay.
anything, they told me.
okay.
The lien holders will be paid in priority. And as your staff mentioned earlier, as a governmental body, your liens have a sort of super priority.
How about demolition? Declaring the city that we want to demolish the property.
Well, that's the action you took in the earlier case.
I
And that's-
understand that.
You can
That's
certainly
what-
do that as well.
That's what made me think of, get the burden off Mr. Satterfield's back. I don't know. Still got the property though.
Have you had the property appraised at all?
No.
Do you have any idea what the value might be?
I think the last bill I got for the taxes, I think was $42,000.
You pay the taxes?
I was paying the taxes, but the attorney told me to stop paying them,
Yeah, yeah.
and, because the other half, my family wasn't giving me
Right,
nothing.
right.
I moved back here in 2003. I lived in New York, and for 10 years, I paid for my father's taxes. They never gave me a dime.
I wonder how much in arrears the taxes are. Do we have any idea?
I think it's 2 years. I haven't paid in 2 years.
And
This will be the second year.
What would be the annual tax on it roughly?
There's two different ones, the city and the county.
City and
I'm not
county.
sure.
Like $400 or $500 a year, maybe?
More than that, but
Is it?
Also, as we had discussed at the last meeting, the city has been mowing and maintaining this property for quite a number of years. I believe back as far as 2012 or 2013, we've been mowing the lawn and citing the property. So not only are there the per-day fines and fees from this case ongoing or that you have levied since then, but in addition, several years of
maintenance.
When I was
correct?
mowing it, I was having it mowed, and the attorney told me to stop paying. He said because the other half of the family wasn't giving me nothing. So I was paying out of my pocket.
I ask a question. I'm curious, and it's because I don't understand. The owner is just listed as Charles Satterfield. Okay? And if there are multiple heirs, I'm wondering why that their names are not on the deed as well.
Point.
If he received the property, did you get the property, if I may, did you have a survivorship interest in the property when your
Yes, my
father
father
passed?
had a will. My father and my stepmother both had wills, two separate wills.
Was that estate
They both
probated?
passed. Huh?
Was that estate probated?
I'm not sure.
It's an interesting question, because if the estate probated, PVA would have never really found out that Mr. Satterfield had passed. If the property was received by a survivorship deed to the children by the father, you'd expect all their names to be listed.
Excellent point.
And if property was in Mr. Satterfield Sr.'s name as opposed to his stepmother's name, then her wishes would not be, then his wishes would supersede her wishes because he owns the property. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need to go to your attorney and say, do I have fee simple title to this? If you do, then you can go ahead and sell it.
Well, he told me he couldn't. He told me he couldn't get a clean deed on it, he says. He said he couldn't get one. He tried and couldn't get one.
Well, I don't know who else's names are on there.
Well, it was about 19 other people.
Wow. Okay. We're trying to help you out of this.
Since we have already basically paid, the fine at this point was $7,500 in February a $300 per day for the 28 days until today. Is that the 8,400?
Yes, that'd be the 8,400.
Okay, then,
Yes.
then we've got, what's the 9,320?
That's what's been assessed to this point on this case,
For the-
including per day
For
fines
the
that were upheld
218 days
last.
that this case has been
Correct.
ongoing? Okay.
I don't know if this helps cancel out at all on your screens there, but this is the title search, just, I don't know if this helps answer any of the questions.
You know who this is from? Who authored this?
This was our legal department. This is from Gene and Tammy.
What's the 1/2? That means 50%?
Yeah, so what the legal department has said in their title search, there were 2 deeds. Your father was Lawrence, is that correct?
Yes.
Lawrence created 2 deeds. The first in time was dated 1997, where he gave to his son Charles a 1/2 interest in the property, retaining a 1/2 life estate, which was 1/2 interest for the remainder of his life. Then in 1984, prior to that, he had executed a deed Yeah, the title work, this is I'd have to look at the 2 deeds a little closer, but there were 2 deeds, both of which Mr. Lawrence Satterfield attempted to obtain a 1/2 life estate interest. In the one deed, the other remaining half went to Charles. In the prior deed, the 1/2 was split between Mary, Lucille, Fred, Arline, these other people.
So is it possible the PVA is pulling only that one deed, and that's why it's assigning Charles as
Most
the...
recent deed.
And
That's
that's why
why,
it
but
shows-
that may not, in this case, be accurate. If a suit to quiet title was instituted, there'd be some question, frankly, the validity of the later deed. Trying to grant a 1/2 interest to a property that he only had retained a life estate in at that point, looks to me. Suffice to say that there would be a significant question as to the ownership of that property. It looks like.
On this page, there's an answer to your question about the outstanding liens or taxes on the property as well.
I'm trying to put this together, but based upon what I hear, we've got, we don't have a definitive answer to the deed of the property. We've got 2 different issues here. Based upon that, I don't see that our board can make a decision to continue on, obviously, with these fines, but
To what purpose?
that's exactly right. To what purpose? There's no purpose in that. So I think that we've gotten accrued fines of $9,320 at this point in time. And Mr. Satterfield, it seems to me, is trying to address a very difficult situation based upon his knowledge and the number of people that he has tried to work with, is what I've heard him say, to get this cleaned up. So I don't see that he needs to be fined anymore at this point in time till we can get some answers and provide him, he needs, if I were in his shoes, I would want a definitive game plan of how to move forward with this thing, and he can't do that. He's trying to, but he can't. That's what I hear.
Of course, as a property owner, as a less than 100% property owner, he has the ability, he doesn't have to wait for the master commissioner to sell the property. He has that same ability also. I would point that out.
Sell it.
To sell
just to sell
it through court intervention. He'd have to seek court relief directing that to happen.
Which court?
The Circuit Court of Warren County would be the court of proper jurisdiction and venue. That happens when you have tenants in common or joint tenants that wish to receive their share of the property. You seek a judicial sale of it, just like the master commissioner would.
So what would Mr. Satterfield, I guess I'm asking for him some advice.
Well, and I mean, obviously, I don't represent Mr. Satterfield. This
Right.
board knows
I
that. I'm here
understand,
to
but
give
for the
you
board,
whatever guidance you would
What
like.
advice can we give to Mr. Satterfield to help him with this?
To discuss with that attorney other options, other than just laying back and waiting for this board to do something, or the city to
Absolutely.
enforce its own liens at this point.
My concern, Mr. Satterfield, is that you're waiting back and you've accrued a fine of $9,350.
Plus.
Plus, that's right. So just waiting back's not the answer to this. That it needs to be, get back with your attorney, as our counsel has said, and try to come up with an answer, either sell it or come back to the city for a master commissioner sale, or, auction, or go to the circuit court and get the authority to do that.
And he will need that,
Yeah,
because he can't enter into a listing agreement with the cloud on the title, and that's what his attorney is telling him, that there's a cloud on the title, that it would appear that for someone to accept fee simple, there had to be more grantors than just him.
Right.
But through a judicial sale, he can request the court do that.
In addition, I would suggest that also something that might buy Mr. Satterfield some time would be to simply abate the code violation at this time, to either paint the house and mow the lawn, which will close the code case for the time being, and maybe allow time for the legal process to play out in the meantime, which might be the simplest fix.
That's
in
the
order to
primary
buy that
problem,
time.
is the paint.
The paint, the lawn, and the neighbors are complaining about the backyard with the fallen trees, and that it's a large accumulation of things back there as well.
Probably a lot cheaper than these fines.
I wouldn't mind, but it's not my property. It's everybody else.
Half of it is.
We have a half. What half do I do? I mean, I was doing all of that before, and none of the other half of the family gave me 1 penny. So the attorney told me to stop. They were all sitting back waiting, hoping they were going to get money off the big Ponderosa sale, which never came. But they didn't want to put any money out of their pockets or their help.
I think what the board heard is your avenue for relief is to get with some attorney and go to the circuit court with a plea to get the title and get it released so that you can sell it. That's what I hear. Otherwise, if you walk out now and do nothing, it's going to get worse and worse.
And all those owners are in that same position, not just this gentleman. They technically are all in the same position. This property that's jointly owned by them, arguably, is receiving encumbrances in the forms of cities' liens that they're eating the equity away. All of them can request the same relief if they want it sold. Doesn't just have to be this gentleman or only this gentleman. Of course, he's the only one here tonight, so he's the one hearing all this.
So what would the option of the court be? To give him fee simple title on the
Well,
on the
that would
deed?
be in the form of a quiet title action if he thinks he has fee simple title based upon these deeds. If he is a joint tenant or a co-tenant, then his option is a judicial sale of the property that would then divide the equity in relation to those interests.
court would do that?
The court would do that, just like the court would do it if the city sued to enforce its liens. That would be the same result. Again, the difference being if the city does that, it will incur fees by way of attorneys that will increase the debt that has to be paid from that property. All the more reason for the homeowner to take it upon themselves to fix the situation. It would result in more equity, but that's their concern, not this board's concern.
How long does that type of thing take? 60 days, 90 days?
Well, once you file it, the other parties, and all these parties have to be served, anyone with a potential interest in the property, including lien holders, so they all have 20 days to answer. It's conservatively, if no one contests it, probably 6 months. It probably takes close to that long.
So if we table this for 6 months and come back to it then, or even less than that, I don't know. I mean,
It wouldn't take 6 months to file it.
no, I know, but
It would take days or weeks to file it. And I would think within 30 or 60 days, this board would have probably a pretty good inclination of whether these owners are gonna do that or not. And at that point, you would have the same options of additional per-day fines, or conceivably talking with the city about enforcing the liens that have been placed on the property. That wouldn't necessarily be this board's decision, but it would be the city's through its law.
And on that, is there any merit to continuing to let a per-day fine run, not as a punitive measure, but as a measure that would allow the city to enforce that to a point where it tips the scales, that there's enough of a encumbrance on the property that it would then be worth the city pursuing that legal action?
I think that's a decision, that would probably be a decision for the city. I think from this board's perspective, if they think additional per-day fines are appropriate, they have every reason to do that. I think it's up to their discretion. I mean, I can't speak for the city. I don't know when it becomes feasible to seek a judicial sale to pay fines, but at this point, if today you uphold the $8,400, you're at $17,000. That's a considerable lien. That's a considerable lien.
why don't we table this for 90 days? That ought to give everybody sufficient time, you to get with your attorney and then to do the paperwork. We'll hold harmless the fines until that 90th day, or approximately whatever the third month out.
Something to consider, not lose sight of, is in the meantime, trees keep falling and limbs keep falling and the grass keeps growing, and we'll have to cite
Have to cite it.
to keep that process going. And
Unless
again,
you want to step up and cut the grass, that'll be added to the lien then.
I'll just point, I would make this point for Mr. Satterfield. Mr. Satterfield, if you believe you own a 1/2 interest in the property, if that were true, then ultimately, if this continues and the per-day fines of $8,400 is enforced, I can do that math. That's $4,200 out of your pocket. That is the consequence of letting these things accrue and then attach to the property. When it is sold, that gets paid first.
Yes, I know.
So that would be $8,400, half of which would normally go to you,
I
conceivably.
don't expect to get anything out of the house anyway. I don't expect to get anything out of the property. So, the attorney told me just let the city take it.
Well, we're trying to get it sold and get you whole and get the property fixed up,
I
so.
was hoping the city would have it by now.
I would think, given that sentiment, the board might consider reviewing this earlier than 90 days and maybe discussing about enforcing the liens in the meantime. And possibly consider, that's just a thought.
I'll amend my motion, make it 60 days. You sure can. You have to speak up. We can't hear you back there. All right, you have to be sworn. I'm sorry, that's the way it is. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Pardon me?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth,
Oh, yes.
nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Nothing but.
Thank you.
Thank you. He's dealt with this for a long time, and the other half just won't go to do anything. And he had, like he said, he's paid all utilities, the yard work, everything that's been done over there. And it's been a lot of money for a long time prior to this. Now, prior to his father passing. Nobody would help. He got tired. Even in the winter, I cut the utilities off. Anybody want to come in and buy the house, somebody want to look at it, they put a coat on in the winter, drain the pipes, cut it off. Still, that saves him from utilities. After he had 2 or 3 people that was wanting to buy it, they couldn't because they couldn't get a clear title. There's 17 people into this other half. Some of them are bright enough to try to sign for the notary that the lawyer sent out. The others didn't care. So what does the lawyer do? So they get tired. He gets tired. So he tells him, let the city have it. So it's going to be, like you said, 90 days, well, 60 days. It'll probably take that a little bit better because these people are not right to do what they should do. And it's giving him a big headache.
Yeah.
He wants it off of his shoulder. And I told him, you've got to go down there. You've got to talk to these people and try to get it solved. I don't know a whole lot about it. And if something happens to him, I frankly don't want to deal with it.
I think that's his sentiment as well, and we're trying to figure out a way to possibly get out. If it doesn't after 60 days, then we'll take another action and see if we can probably have it demolished.
That would be May 24th. May 24th for 2 months.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure what we achieve by going 60 days. I really don't. I'm thinking maybe the next meeting.
No, we have to give them time to respond.
Who?
The 16 other people.
No, you have to communicate with those people. They've never been able to get anything back from them before, when they had offers.
But if they offer it now and they don't come back, then the court moves on, right?
Oh, yeah, the court, if they don't respond to the complaint.
See, the
court
court's
moves
going to
on.
take it away from them.
That's assuming.
We can't take it away from them. The 16. You're number 17, right?
That's it.
Oh, you're number 1.
I'm number 1.
Okay.
But all of that is contingent upon Mr. Satterfield initiating that action.
That's correct.
And he said he didn't want to do that. That's why I'm saying, why wait 60 days?
Is that correct, Mr. Satterfield?
What's that?
That you don't want to go to circuit court
No.
to try to get,
All right, that's different.
yeah.
Okay. Then we'll proceed like we did in the other case to ask the staff to initiate the paperwork.
I think that motion in this case would just be to move to abate the noncompliance through demolition or whatever action they got to take.
Okay, that gets you off the hook. Now, we have your permission to proceed with that?
Oh, yes,
To
sir.
have the city take it and demolish it?
Yes.
Now, but you got a question of whether that's everybody's permission. And one more point I'll make on that is even if you demolish the building, is anyone going to mow the yard out there? Is anyone going to maintain the trees out there? I mean, this may be a case, frankly, where this board would need to discuss with the city foreclosing on the property to enforce its liens. That would remedy his ownership issue. And of course, the subsequent buyer at that foreclosure proceeding would have, hopefully, would do their due diligence and maintain the property, and it wouldn't be an ongoing issue. That's really his request, as I hear it. He wants that to happen. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had a homeowner come before you and say, please condemn my property and sell it at foreclosure. But that's essentially what he's asking. His attorney, whoever that is, has advised him to proceed that way. I mean, that's what I'm hearing from him.
That what?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Technically, I don't know if this body is the body that, it will be the city that forecloses him.
Well, we can make the motion to give it to the,
Well,
Make a
I think a
request
proper
to the-
motion would be a request that the liens be enforced, the citation, that the fines and the, fines that have accrued be enforced
this board,
from this board.
not the taxes.
That's correct. Of course, the city would do all that at the same time.
Yeah. Foreclose on the property.
Initiate the procedures for foreclosing the property.
Yes.
I second that.
Okay, what do we want to do with the current?
And we,
He's got a good point, because there's $8,400 out there.
Well, and it's continuing to run. It's running right now. The per-day fines are running right now.
I don't see any sense of that continuing. I really don't.
no,
No.
or the 8,400. It's not gonna achieve anything.
No, the city's maintaining that property, and we're still mowing, and we've got those expenses. So I'd suggest we leave the fines as they are and come out of the proceeds of the sale.
You're suggesting
in a
to
form of a lien.
suspend any further fines? Is
Yes,
that what
that's
you're
what I
saying?
say. Suspend the further fines.
Which would total, how much? Delane, how much?
Well, we're at 9,320 at the present time.
Let's stop it right there.
Let's leave it there.
Yeah.
All right,
9,320,
correct,
waiving the 8,400.
correct.
Just know, in the meantime, though, if we have to do mowing and
Yeah.
limb cleanup, that's
Plus, we'll accrue
that will accrue some
additional.
additional.
Yes,
It's
it's got-
it's small.
It's gotta be added.
Yeah.
It'd be added, correct. Just want you-
9,320.05 plus any accrued expenses until the sale is finalized. Or the property is owned by the city.
Jack's motion, my second. Please.
Thomas, Simpson, Deere,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Thomas.
Thank you, Mr.
I hope that
Satterfield.
helps. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's see, we have, let's see, what else here? Consent agenda, and I believe we take that as a body.
Sorry, Chairman.
Yes, sir. Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented on, as Exhibit A.
Motion made.
Second that motion.
Deere, Simpson, Deere,
Yes.
Simpson,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Sorry.
Make a motion to adjourn. Second.
Second?
All in favor?
Thomas, Deere, Deere,
Yes.
Simpson, Thomas.
Yes.